Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figure It Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, it's Adam here. I'm doing a quick video from my office just so we can talk a little bit of Switch news, and I say that in quotations because some of this is actually news and some of it is more so rumor stuff, and I just want to talk about it. So first of all, hope you guys all had a nice, safe holidays and all that, and Happy New Year and all that. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it, but you know, do me a favor if you don't mind. Hit the social media stuff in the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, Travel Channel. I also appreciate if you drop me a like and a comment, subscribe, etc. Okay, let's move on now that we've got that all the way. So unfortunately there's no Instagram page specifically for my hair yet, maybe one day. But in the meantime, so we got two things we want to talk about here. The first is, I'm sure a lot of you guys heard, there's yet another round of Switch 2 rumors. So let's go ahead and talk about this. You guys know I'm not one really for rumors. I often just sit there and I'm like, just stop. Rumors usually come from just some guy. And they sometimes can pan out, but a lot of the times it's just some guy saying something and everybody's like, oh, well, that confirms it. So let's talk about the latest round here. So I'm going to pull up the IGN article specifically as a source here, and I will link it in the description. You can read about it yourself. But basically, they're not the only people that talked about this. A bunch of people did. And here's where it comes from. So here is, it all originates, I guess, from a gamingindustry.biz. And it comes from a guy named Dr. Serkin Toto, who I presume is Japanese. He's a content games analyst noted for being a Nintendo expert. Okay, in other words, a guy. Now, I'm not saying this guy isn't credible in his industry and the things he does, but in this situation, he does not represent Nintendo in any official capacity. He's a guy offering an opinion. And here's what he says. He believes that the Switch 2 will be out in 2024, and Switch 2 in quotations. He also affirmed the persistent but unconfirmed rumors that there was indeed a Switch Pro in development at some point. Okay, fine. But here's exactly the quote from the guy. The time is finally here for a Switch successor. Even though I can say a Pro model actually did exist and certain developers were actually working with the dev kit, Toto wrote, I believe the next hardware will drop next year for $400. There is a high chance that games will cost more too, $70. The next system will also likely be an iteration rather than a revolution. Nintendo might be adding some bells and whistles to the device, but it will be similar to the current Switch. And because there is Pokemon, and Pokemon is associated with handheld gaming, there is no way on earth Nintendo will drop the portability feature for their next big thing. And, you know, and then it just goes on to just say more things about, you know, Switch 2 having been rumored for years and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's effectively the entire source. Now, is he wrong? Don't know. Time will tell. But again, this is just a guy talking. So let's give, you know, some credibility here. Let's just give it benefit of the doubt. Let's assume this is correct, and that there is going to be some sort of iteration of new Nintendo hardware this year. Based on this description, if we give any credibility to this whatsoever, this isn't so much the jump from, say, like the Wii to the Wii U, where it just feels like the next generation effort despite its name, or feels like completely radically different things, say the difference between the Wii U and the Switch. This is more like going from the Nintendo DS to the 3DS. And to be fair, that's a nice improvement, because, you know, the 3DS was backwards compatible with the DS. It offered, you know, very similar architecture as far as like the feel of it. And I'm not saying internally, but granted it did have backwards compatibility, of course, which is all good. That's the kind of things I would expect in it. This is good as opposed to, say, going from like 3DS to the new 3DS, where it's technically beefier, but that's all it is. That would be the Pro model, which they've obviously decided not to do. At least assuming you want to give this credibility, which I guess I would be happier with. I would rather we skip the whole Pro model concept and just kind of milk the system for a year or two. I'd rather just move on to the next thing. So beyond that, you know, we can talk price point. $400, that's not totally unsurprising, I guess. You know, it could be a lot worse. And the price point of $70 gameplay, or games, sorry, also not really shocking. Unpopular statement here. People are always getting mad about the idea of, oh, games are being raised $70 now. It's so greedy, corporates, blah, blah. First of all, corporations exist for the sole purpose of generating revenue. I got news for you on that one. And secondly, games are actually cheaper now than they've ever been historically. Like presumed price point of $60 for a game has been that way since like the 80s. But inflation has continued to go with it. I mean, like, I remember being a kid, you know, and walking around in the 90s and you want to get a new Sega Genesis game and it was $60. But $60 then would be like $100 now. Prices have actually gone down effectively. So it's not that shocking that with increased development costs and inflation that they need to kind of adjust that. We're kind of victims of our own demand here because we want games to stay cheap, but then they still need to generate revenue. So that's where they start introducing things like DLC and all that stuff so that they can get more bites of the apple. But that's a different discussion entirely. So to stick with this, I'm not putting a whole lot of credibility in this. It would not shock me given the way Nintendo operates, where they just kind of suddenly, here's a new system. But in Nintendo's history, they typically make announcements themselves. They don't do stuff this way. And they usually give a lot of, you know, warning with that. Like Project NX, which became Switch, was announced like 2 years after the Wii U came out. Now, granted, that was to appease investors because they were very concerned about the state of Nintendo. But even Project Cafe, which was the Wii U itself, was announced, you know, officially, what, like a year, if not, yeah, maybe like about a year before the system actually dropped. So if we use that as the ideal model, or the Wii itself. I don't remember exactly the circumstances of how that was announced, but it doesn't really matter. Nintendo has a history of announcing their new systems kind of very officially. So I would wait for some sort of report from them. So I wouldn't be too shocked if this is true, but at the same time, I'm also not shocked if it's not. What lends some credibility to this, in my opinion, is just the age of the Switch. The fact that we're only a couple months away now from it turning 7. Which, yeah, that you get older faster. It sucks. But so I could see some. It's not like we all know they're eventually going to update the system. One of these days, one of these things will be right in the sense that I said there'd be a new Switch this year, and there was. You know, like it's going to happen eventually. This might be that time. Don't know. Now, just general predictions on my end. If this is true, I would almost absolutely guarantee Switch backwards compatibility. I'd be shocked if they didn't do it, because if they're treating it like DS to 3DS, I would say that's all going to be built in, and that they're going to just give beefier hardware so developers can, you know, dig into it a little more. If I had to guess, I'd say this is going to be on par with like a PS4 Pro. Technologically speaking, that would be my guess, but again, purely a guess. So I don't know, what do you guys think about this? Is that of any interest to you? Would you pick this up, etc.? The other thing I wanted to talk about here, and it's also Switch related, and I probably should have mentioned it at the beginning, is the MIG Switch. Now, this was a different thing entirely. It has nothing to, this is not rumors, this exists, and I've also got this up on a page here. So there was a tweet that went out a little while ago that from this, you know, group that basically was like, hey, we have, you know, this new flash card for the Switch, and it's going to be coming soon. So we've gotten more information since then. So I wanted to kind of give you some highlights here, although there are other videos out there, particularly Mr. Mario, who detailed this in extreme fashion. So I'm not going to try and outdo him. I'm just going to give you some of the basics. So this flash card, as it's called, or is known as the MIG Switch, MIG, and it features a little icon of a plane. This actually comes from the Russian Federation, and so a MiG is a type of aircraft, and that's what they're referencing. I'm a little shocked just on the side that somehow we're getting stuff out of Russia given the world right now, but whatever, that's fine. Anyway, so at the time I record this, it is January 5th. And as of yesterday, January 4th, they were actually shipping out review units to various influencers and YouTubers. I did not reach out to them. It actually says straight up on their website, if you want to go check it out, which I'll also put a link to in the description, that if you are an influencer, they're willing to talk about review units. I didn't approach them because in reading a little bit about this, I'm not... Granted, obviously, I and no one else at the time I record this has one, but it doesn't really seem like something that would be all that useful in practice. A lot of people are looking at this with a certain, let's say, bias of expectation of how it's going to work, which is a lot of people were thinking like R4 cards. Like I actually did a video on the R4 card for the Nintendo DS not that long ago. The basic idea is much like any of the Crix flash cards or whatever. It's like a generic blank card. You put your own SD card in it. It's got ROMs, and you just play whatever you want, right? That's kind of the expectation. That's not how this works. Based on the way the Switch protections function, you basically can't just do that. And their website actually kind of somewhat details this. Basically, it's got two really good use cases because the device itself can't read unsigned code. It can only read like legit, proper Nintendo Switch dumps, which you have to do one of two ways. Now, the most obvious way is if you already have a modified Nintendo Switch, you can use that to dump games. But if you already have that, you don't need this. So that kind of kills like one element of it. They also refer to having some sort of dumping tool, which presumably is a physical thing that goes in conjunction with the card. And that would be good, I suppose. Now, there's no pictures or anything of that, again, at the time I record this, or how that process works. Again, they have more information on their website if you want to read it. This is just kind of a quick thoughts thing. But basically, you would require that to be able to dump it without already having a modified Switch. And from that point, there's only really two use cases here, which is you either are a guy who is just pirating everything and you don't really care like about that. Well, that's got a problem because, you know, the Switch is online capable. So if you keep it online, like the games are going to get banned like almost immediately. This is, I don't know how many people actually know this, but every single Nintendo Switch game has a unique serial ID. And when I say every single, I mean like not just, oh, you know, Super Mario Odyssey has a different key from Super Smash Brothers. I mean every single copy of Super Mario Odyssey has a different serial key. Nintendo has all of them registered. They know what all of them are. So if any key shows up more than once, you know, duplicate keys, they know that that copy is a pirated copy or a faulty copy and must be banned. Thus, the certificate is banned and the game doesn't work anymore. So if you care about keeping things online, the piracy route of I'm going to download all the games and throw them all on there, not for you in this one. You would have to do everything offline, which creates the problem of how do you deal with updates and patches. There are ways to do it, but once again, that would require an already pre-hacked Switch to be able to download all that content, and it gets very convoluted very quickly. So if you want to do this legitimately, what they are claiming, and this would be theoretically useful, would be the idea that if you have the dumper tool, and like say you're a guy who has a very large Nintendo Switch collection, but you know, logically so, you just kind of want to have all your games kind of conveniently stored, or you want to be able to travel with it and not have to bring like 100 Switch cards with you or whatever. The idea behind this, at least the legit use case, let's call it that, is if you dump your own games, like let's say you bought a copy of, you know, Animal Crossing or whatever you bought, and you know you own it physically, you haven't gotten rid of it, it's yours, it's not banned by any means, you can clone it essentially to this, and as far as the system is concerned, it's the exact same copy you own, you can still use it online, etc. What gets you in trouble with the certificates is the same key being passed around to multiple systems, and especially if they ever appear online at the same time. So if you're just backing up and archiving your own console set and then playing it that way, then you probably will be fine. It's just that you would have to actually own those copies, because like even if you're like, okay, I archived all 100 of my games or whatever, and now that I have them all in here, I don't need them anymore, so I'm going to sell them all. It's not going to take long before other people are playing those copies that used to be yours, where theirs gets banned and so does your little archived copy on there. You basically have to retain your original collection in order for it to be useful with the flash card. And the other element of this is that the Nintendo Switch, obviously Nintendo continues to update the firmware all the time. They are actually capable of firmware updating the Switch cart slot itself. So it's possible there's something in this thing that the Nintendo Switch currently can't identify as being, you know, the MIG Switch. But with a simple firmware update from Nintendo, it could theoretically block the cart from ever working. Now, apparently these things can be updated as well. So you're basically counting on this this group based in the Russian Federation to be able to stay one step ahead of Nintendo in order for you to be able to use this thing all the time. At least that's what it looks like from the onset, and that's without actually having access to the thing and seeing what other changes or problems might exist under the hood. Like I said, I could have filed in a request to get a review unit of this, but I'm not really sure I want to. It seems a little limited. And I don't know, it can't read unsigned code. So like I said, every Nintendo Switch game that it runs has to be already a legit original title. You can't run homebrew with this or anything like that. And I don't know, man, like basically based on what I'm seeing and my digestion of this information, I would say that you're probably better off just like modding a Switch to begin with. This seems at first good, because it seems like something that would be, you know, you'd expect a certain outcome. Like I said, with the R4 DS cards or an EverDrive or something like that, it doesn't work that way. And I think a lot of people, when they get this, they might be like, this is more convoluted than I was expecting. So yeah, the two use cases are the people who are cool with pirating everything and they have to stay offline all the time. They don't care if their account's banned or, you know, whatever. And then they are willing to deal with trying to find updates and DLC and all that sort of stuff in other sources and transferring it oddly, which seems like a huge pain. That's case one. And case two is people who are like, I own legitimate massive library of Nintendo Switch games and I just want to have them all in one convenient spot, and hopefully Nintendo doesn't get mad about the fact that I'm using this cart that they didn't authorize. Those are your two use cases currently. I mean, again, if you go to their website, which again, I'll put a link to in the description, it straight up says, like, in order to archive stuff, you have to already have a hacked Switch console, which defeats the whole point of having this, right? Unless you're using it on a hacked Switch console, which is also weird, because then really the only reason you're doing that is potentially to save storage space on the system itself. But either way, you're using an SD card, so why bother? I don't know. And also, just, you know, again, haven't had access to it, but the way it actually works about, you know, having to cycle between games looks like a bit of a pain, because it obviously can't load up any sort of menu or anything. So you effectively just kind of insert and uninsert, insert, uninsert until you kind of get to the game you want. You know, we'll see. I'm not gonna say that this thing is like bad, haven't used it or anything. All I guess I'm saying in both of these stories, temper your expectations a bit. You know, keep calm, play games, carry on. But yeah, that was my thoughts on this. Hopefully you guys found it interesting. I'm curious what everybody's thoughts are out there. Is anybody actually for sure getting the MIG Switch? Do they actually want this? And again, if you want a more detailed explanation of like how the problems with this MIG Switch theoretically, go watch Mr. Mario's video. He's, you know, he did a great job talking about this. Yeah, and if you guys is anybody out there like a diehard absolutely believing that Switch 2, which they'll never call it that, although I did see a lot of trending, people were saying that those Nintendo should really call it Super Nintendo Switch. Genius. That would be genius. Anyway, that'll do it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. Again, have an awesome time. Please like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate your support as always on all the social media stuff in the description: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon especially, travel channel, and Spreadshirt if you want to buy merch or any of that kind of thing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.